Hello, everyone. My name is Kaylee Ann Tayek, and I'm here to share with you my Creative Compassion for Older Adults project as part of the Arts and Compassion course at UF. To get started, so my original concept is that I developed a 2-hour creative arts workshop intended for older adults ages 60 to 80. I am using a mixed methods arts activities approach using a blend of music, art, and creative writing. And the ultimate goal of this workshop is to encourage participants to engage with elements of self-compassion and compassion for others. So, my rationale for why I chose this patient population and this kind of combination of practices. So, I have an extensive history working with older adults, both in healthy aging populations and in dementia and Alzheimer's care programs. And I find that perspectives of older adults are often discounted. So, having an opportunity that we could connect through an arts experience, validating lived experience, and talking about just different perspectives around the concept of compassion could be in and of itself an opportunity for compassion and also an opportunity for me to share some of the educational and scientific benefits of compassion that I have learned in this course. So the reason I chose the different artistic mediums you'll see in this presentation today is that they really use the physical senses. So they're very engagement heavy, very tactile, sensory in nature, which allows for deeper connection with the person to the art form and also gives them an opportunity to connect through the arts with one another. So really just kind of getting into that connection with compassion internally and externally becomes a pretty big theme throughout. As I approached the design for the workshop, I approached it like I'm a program manager. So I approached it as if it were a whole program. So I developed a very short intake survey that just had, of course, the photo consent, but then also collected things like their music preferences and what they would want the ambient music to be like as they enter the space, what kind of music is great for them in the background as conversation is happening, and then also some kind of tangible things like what I gave a definition of compassion and asked if there were songs that spoke to them that felt that they had a connection to or felt like met the definition of compassion. So with that kind of as a base, I was able to bring in their thoughts and their preferences into how I adapted the workshop. I also from here was able to take some elements of preparation. I decided to make the activity itself, since it was such a small group, I invited them to come over to my house, which is a different experience that I've ever done before, typically working with folks out more in the community, but it was a really small group. And so I made simple sandwiches and tea. So I asked about allergies. And then I made from their suggestions a curated playlist that we could choose from for the lyric analysis later. In regards to the workshop itself, I had a 3-part design. So the first one was defining compassion and really educating them on some of the highlights that I took away from this course, in addition to some of the ways that I found the content of Arts and Compassion connecting to the science of earlier coursework that we did around things like the stress response and psychoneuroimmunology. So really kind of connecting the pieces and how they all come together and how it may in fact impact them as an individual. So just to be more articulate about how these things work inside the body. So that was the educational piece. After that, we had a more internal application piece. So this was all about self-compassion with exercises that bring us more inward to reflect on our own needs. And then we ended with really the bulk of it, which was all external application. How can we use the arts to connect with one another? And how can compassion be a theme that we seek and choose to activate on when working with others? And then at the end, I did a rather informal evaluation, just collecting an assessment of their thoughts from the day and what their key takeaways were, and then creating a in the moment word cloud of their thoughts and reactions. So, jumping into it, we'll start with just the session plan and then it'll break out into how it was actually executed the day of the workshop. So, the session plan for education, defining compassion, I gave a standard definition for compassion, a list of psychological and physiological benefits, and then I had some good discussion prompts. As you'll see here, I had 2 slides on this as I did present like a formal presentation. So I talked about what is compassion, the emotional response to another's pain or suffering with an authentic desire to help. And then I gave them my definition. Compassion is the empathetic response to another person that leads to an action of support. And then as a group, we ended up really discussing what were our definitions of compassion. And some felt that action was important. Many felt that friendship and understanding and living with somebody through a challenge was also compassion. So there was still this level of some type of involvement beyond empathy, but hearing kind of how people were naturally already thinking about compassion as we just began this workshop was really special. I talked about the benefits of compassion as in the main course text, Compassionomics, and this slide really spurred a lot of just discussion between the participants about how, of course, reduced stress is something that they knew about, but the physiological things, the nervous system, the healing response, inflammation, pain, like wow, it really just refocused how people thought about how compassion does have some very, very tangible benefits besides just they know it makes you feel good when you act in the realm of compassion. Um, so from there, I kind of moved us into talking about the internal application. So self compassion. So we talked about the standard definition for self compassion, the relaxation response. Um, I brought in why the arts are important for compassion. So, kind of connecting things out in the field to the work that we learned in the class, talking about psychoneuroimmunology from actually the very first course at UF for arts and medicine, and then the relaxation response. So, how could we really bring these things into our bodies? Um, we ended up skipping the music and drawing because we had so much time, about an hour had already been spent in discussion. So we really wanted to move into some of the more deeper connecting pieces of compassion. So that the last part is I reframed the benefits of compassion into opportunities for connecting with others through lyric analysis and writing to images. We had a beautiful moment just doing the lyric analysis bit. I pulled from the songs that they had submitted as of interest to them. So we listened to the ones that they had already identified. One of the songs that were selected was a song called "We Can Be Kind," and a participant had shared an experience around her community gathering around one another in response to 9/11 and singing the song. And then another participant brought up "Bridge Over Troubled Water" and shared being up in the middle of the night with a brand new baby in the 1970s, feeling pretty empowered and a sense of connection brought on through the lyrics of the song itself. So lots of great conversation around lyrics. Then we looked at photos. I used photos from an earlier project in this course called Hands of Compassion. And we made some word banks and some beautiful poems based on our responses to the photos themselves. And then at the end, like I said, I asked them their thoughts, and we created this beautiful word cloud where I love that the highlighted words are compassion, friendship, empathy, actively listening, being present, and kindness. So at the conclusion, it was a wonderful afternoon, inspired by creative conversation. It was a smaller group than I had anticipated. I had expected 5, and due to illness and some other challenges, it led to a very small group of 2. So my husband ended up jumping in, and then my daughter ended up joining us at the very, very end after nap. But it was a very intimate experience. And in total, we spent 3 hours together and still didn't complete all the things that I hoped to. But I'm super inspired to replicate this workshop again and see what farther applications we could use for arts and compassion specific to older adults, but to anyone and beyond. Thank you for listening.